Ladies and gentlemen, the 2025 World Juniors are finished, and today I wanted to go through my updated 2025 NHL mock draft, going through the top 20 to see which prospects have risen and fallen since the World Juniors started. We actually saw a lot of draft eligibles at this year's tournament, and a lot of stock has gone up and down. So which prospects have had their stock rise and fall, and who comes inside this month's top 20? Well, make sure you watch till the end, because we're going to be covering every single prospect with their strengths, their weaknesses, and their NHL projection. And make sure to hit that subscribe button if you're new for more draft content just like this as we lead up to the draft this summer. Now, I've said it before about this draft, but it is absolutely wide open, especially after the top 4 and maybe even top 5 guys. It is all over the place, which is why already on this list over the past few months, we've seen a lot of changes, and today is no different. And now let's get started at number 20, starting us out in the draft rankings today with a player that has not gone into the rankings so far until today. Let's go on to Shane Van Sage of Michigan State University, somebody that really wasn't on my radar too much to start out the season, but has done great things in the NCAA already. Really, the big thing is that frame and the physicality. You can see at 6'2", 216 pounds, he is an absolute beast and has been playing very well this year with Michigan State on a top-ranked team. You can see in 19 games, 2 goals, 9 assists for 11 points. In terms of Van Sage's game, I think the reason why he likely won't find himself too much higher is I think there's a little bit of a potential problem, because I don't think he's going to be much of a scorer at the next level. But what Van Sage can do is absolutely grind you down to a pulp. He knows how to use his body so perfectly on the forecheck, providing pressure and using his stick to just create so much traffic in the opposing zone. Defensively, he helps out a ton. He's versatile. He has a pretty good speed for how strong and how big he is as well. And he's somebody that I just see being this very versatile, very effective forechecking penalty kill guy. You can put in really all situations and get a great work ethic out of him. I wouldn't look for Van Sage to be the skill guy on your line, but if he's the one working hard to retrieve pucks for your top end players, I think he could be a perfect complementary piece in the NHL someday. Now we move on to number 19 and the WHL, which features a lot of prospects in this top 20. Let's go on to Brandon Coots, who we talked about a lot and has kind of been in this range for a while now in my rankings. But he's just a very versatile, hardworking centerman that I just like a lot as a balanced middle sixer in the future. You can see the production hasn't been overwhelming this year for Seattle. In 33 games, 14 goals, 18 assists for 32 points, but is the captain there and leads like it on the ice. He is relentless, the work ethic's fantastic, and the way that, especially at his size, which isn't overwhelming, he's able to win board battles, win these battles all over the ice, and get the puck back, I think is extraordinary. I do think the playmaking is the big offensive trait that will take him far. The goal scoring has been improving this year, but the way he's able to make quick, sharp decisions with the puck and find teammates along the wall, he's just a very simple and effective player, and I think one that'll play a lot of NHL games in the future. Now on to number 18, and one of my favorite defensemen in this class, going on to Cameron Reed of the Kitchener Rangers, someone that I do like quite a bit that has been turning more and more into an offensive defenseman. You can see this year in 37 games, 6 goals, 24 assists, 30 points. So far with that production has been extremely nice to see. But to me, Reed is a very interesting one because he's kind of like a Matthew Schaefer light to me at points. He's very aggressive on transition, somebody that can feed players up the ice, especially in his own zone, extremely well. He's somebody that does have some problems, at least in terms of defending against the rush. I think that is the biggest thing. Trying to use that speed and not get caught defensively, I think, is a major problem for him. But when he does have the puck, when he is able to make reads, he's somebody that has a lot of potential with the puck. And in terms of that playmaking, it's been at a sky-high level this year, but has that confidence and agility to make that whole package work well. Next, I'm going on to number 17, and still one of my favorite prospects to watch in this class, in Cole Reshney of the Victoria Royals. Someone that I do still like a lot, though I start to have more questions on him the more I watch him. In terms of Reshney's play so far this year, he's been still pretty brilliant. In 34 games for Victoria, has been a leader, especially in the playmaking department, 31 assists and 43 points, and he's been great in those offensive categories. In terms of the work ethic, he is there. He loves to be a detail-oriented forward, somebody that will provide support throughout the play, and especially when the game gets tough, he likes to go in those dirty areas and try to muck things up. The thing that I have questions over is that skating good enough, especially for that smaller size, to be able to be an effective NHLer, and will those physical traits be much of a detriment, especially because he is more of a physically ambitious forward? To me, those are things that will have to be seen over the next few years, but I still love the skill level and the ideas and the creativity that Ratty provides, enough to still have him in this spot. Now we go on as number 16 and go on to the D that just missed the US World Junior team, though I think could have been effective there, in Blake Fiddler of the Edmonton Oil Kings. I think he's just going to be a very simple and refined defensive defenseman at the next level. Already is for a pretty young guy at 17 years old. You can see 6'4", 209 pounds. He's someone that's had a solid season for Edmonton this year. Points-wise, not too bad. 15 in 32 games. He's been finding more confidence, especially at the opposing blue line and in those offensive opportunities. He's somebody, though, that is going to be making his money, though, in the defensive reads with how he uses his stick, how he uses his body positioning. He's just so good at escaping pressure, escaping forecheckers, putting the puck up the ice and making those smart plays. I don't think he's going to be this otherworldly scoring D, but he's going to be an effective one that's going to be eating minutes so consistently in the NHL. Now, just getting inside the top 15 and going on to another player that is entering the list for the first time here, I got Collin Potter of Arizona State University, somebody that I wanted to watch a lot more of since my last rankings, and he has been absolutely amazing. You can see a shorter player and a very young player in the NCAA, still not even turning 18 until in the next few days in January, but he's somebody that has gotten a lot more consistent over the last couple months. You can see the production hasn't been insane or anything. In 17 games, 6 goals, 4 assists for 10 points, but he's been getting more and more of an opportunity and playing a lot of center, which I think is pretty important to see at 17 years old. In terms of Potter's play, though, he is so intense, so much fun to watch. He is just brimming with pace and intensity and electrifying skill level. He loves to play on the rush, loves to be the front man, loves to create so much with his confidence and his skill level, attacking defensemen one-on-one and trying to make quick plays in front of the slot. I like him a lot. We'll see how much he's able to adapt throughout the second half of this NCAA season. The fact he's so young and showing so much already, I think, is a great sign. Not many players his age would be in the NCAA. They'd be in the NTDP, for example, like Logan Cooley was in his draft year. So I try to imagine what Cooley would have been in his draft year, and I don't think it would have been too much different than what Potter is doing right now. Next up at number 14, going on to a player that has been getting a little bit better, though had that really rough start to the season. Let's go on to Anton Friedell, which was really a shame to not see at the Swedish team for the World Juniors, but I get it. He didn't start out the season all that well, had the injuries, had the inconsistencies, but I think we are starting to see better out of Friedell recently, and in the Allsvenskan, I think he is starting to find his game again. You can see in 10 games, 2 goals, 3 assists, 5 points, which is solid production, a half a point per game for a 17-year-old. That's a hard league to play against, and Friedell is starting to find himself. For me, the strengths have always been the physical play and the awareness to find the space for shooting lanes for himself. I think the consistency this year has been a major problem, but he's starting to get a lot more comfortable, a lot more confident, and that's when Friedell is at his best. Next up at number 13, and one of the bigger surprises all throughout this draft year has been Ratty Mka, who has now gone from Czechia now to the Seattle Thunderbirds, which I think has been a pretty good move for him. We've talked about him a lot on this channel over the last few rankings. You can see a 6'6", 198 Czech D. He's somebody that is going to be a main factor among this defense crop, and somebody that could honestly see going into the top 10 pretty easily. You can see since he's come over from Czechia to the WHL in 13 games, he has 2 goals, 9 assists for 11 points, which for a defensive defenseman, I think is pretty fantastic. I think we've seen a lot more confidence and really a lot more opportunistic style with the skating ability he has, with just how much confidence he has in all 3 zones. He's someone that I think is finding himself in North American ice, and honestly, good for him. His shot is absolutely brilliant. His defensive posture and his confidence in his own zone is absolutely beautiful. He's someone that uses his stick so well, uses that body positioning. It's kind of, to me, a better version of Blake Fiddler, or at least has more potential with that skating ability and the size that he provides. We'll see how much Mka does for the second half of this WHL season, but so far I think he's looked pretty great coming over to a new style, and I think the smaller ice is good for him. In terms of playing styles, I think he reminds me still so much of Simashev, though I think the shot is a little bit more of a weapon in Mrka's case, so offensively, you could be getting more of that. Next up, let's go on to number 12 and on to the QMJHL with Caleb Denoye, another player that I've liked quite a bit throughout this draft process, somebody that is just an extremely smart and versatile middle six center, I think, for the future. You can see so far in the QMJHL, pretty great production, 23 goals, 50 points so far, and that's for a very good reason. The way he's able to read the ice, scan the ice, with both his team and against. He's just somebody that is so smart in all 3 zones, and with the solid skating ability, with the skill he has in tight, I think just has a lot of projectable NHL traits. I don't think he's going to be an unbelievable center by any means, but a very strong third line center that I think will do a lot of great things for you and really push pace in the right direction. He has lessened a little bit just because I don't know how much he'll push past a third line center role, but I think that's where he will stand in the NHL, and I think that is a valuable spot. Now we go on to number 11, and I'm pretty sure the last player on the list here that hasn't been in any rankings before, but I've watched a lot more of, and man, it's hard to not put him on this list and put him up high. At number 11, I'm going to go Carter Bear of the Everett Silvertips. This is somebody that admittedly I hadn't watched too much before this last month, but I really wanted to dial into because I've heard a lot about him, and boy howdy, have people been right about him. He is just one of the most fun players to watch in this draft. I implore you to just watch a game of him because he has been brilliant in the WHL this year. In 30 games, 25 goals, 53 points, just unbelievable. But to me, it all feeds from that work ethic, the intensity. He is just so much of a dog out there, man. In every situation, you will find him battling in the boards, battling net fronts. He'll be able to play along every situation for you and work play in the right direction. It's astounding. He'll play penalty kill, he'll be power play, he'll be in the net front, he'll be around the boards, he'll be the skill guy, he'll be the grinding guy, he'll basically be whatever you need him to be out there. But it all stems from that work ethic and the intensity, and I think it will take him a long way. To me, with Bear, I think he's a lot more smart with his physical intuitions and his instincts than a player like Cole Reshny is, and I think that is why he has more defensive and physicality in the future for himself. But I just see Bear being a pretty perfect second-line guy that you can put in really every situation you need, and he'll get it done for you. He's going to be a coach's favorite and really a fan favorite. Now at number 10, we go on to another player that I see as extremely projectable in this class in Malcolm Spence, who of course always seems to find him around this spot, around the 8 to 12 range, and for good reason. The maturity is the best in the draft. Now he is one of the oldest players in the draft, so that isn't too surprising. But at 6'2", 201 pounds, he to me is a slam dunk to be a middle six NHLer. You can see with Erie so far this year in 33 games, 17 goals, 25 assists, 42 points. The intensity is great, but to me, the IQ and where he positions himself in all situations, he is just such a good support player, somebody that can play on the rush, somebody that can get outlets out of his own defensive zone and just work up the ice so well. His playmaking is good. The consistency is there. You know what you're getting, shift in and shift out with Spence. And I think he's somebody that will have a lot of value in the NHL someday because of that consistency. Now at number 9, we go on to a player that I'm still putting inside the top 10, but it's getting harder to every day because of just how other players are showing themselves and the lack of help with this player. I have Roger McQueen. Now, health has, of course, been a big issue because I think if we've seen him throughout this year, he maybe could be higher. But in 8 games, he has 8 goals, 3 assists, 11 points. Has not played in a long time, though. Hopefully, he'll be coming back soon. The physical traits, obviously, the big thing you can see with McQueen. 6'5", 192 pounds, and he's great at protecting the puck. But I still think there are a lot of raw things with McQueen that the injury didn't exactly help to alleviate the concerns. He's just somebody that can be a little more of a rover, be a little bit more of a support player. I think with his potential, there's a lot there, but I think he's going to settle into kind of a Kirby Dach role where there's great moments and great stretches, but the consistency always kind of leaves you wanting more. Now moving on to number 8, and it's still outside of that top 5 crop, I think is one of the more projectable players in this draft, in Logan Hensar out of the University of Wisconsin. Making this U.S. World Junior team, I think, was a pretty strong feat for him, and even though his playing time has decreased every single game, I still think he's been a useful player for the U.S. There's been a couple of moments here and there, and that goal versus Czechia along the boards was a pretty bad giveaway, but for the most part, I think he's been a solid player in transition, especially in his own zone, getting pucks out, using simple plays, and effective versatility. His skating level is great. His physicality has been improving every single year. He's somebody that I think just projects as a very safe, very responsible top 4D that'll eat a lot of minutes and do very well at doing so. And I think has offensive potential and more confidence to unlock. Now we go on to number 7, and another player that I've watched a lot more, and somebody that has risen as well in my list. Let's go on to Lyndon Lakovich, somebody that just rises on my board pretty much every single time I watch this guy. He is so much fun to watch, and in my opinion, kind of what I was expecting Roger McQueen to be this year. You can see in terms of size, not that far behind at 6'4", 190 pounds, but I think Lakovich is so much better at using his size, especially up the ice, especially in transition. Lakovich is a monster. He is so good in those one-on-one situations. Reminds me a lot of the Beckett-Seneca second half that we saw last year, where he's just able to overwhelm opponents with his skill, speed, and size combo. There are times as well where I think he can just take over a game, but I want to see him do that more, assert himself even more, because this guy has so much talent, so much potential that I think he can do it. You can see so far in 31 games, not otherworldly production with Moose Jaw, just 39 points there, but still pretty good. And I think Lakovic has the potential to be so much more. Now, before we get to number 6, I do want to talk about the top 5 of this draft, because I think if we're talking about tiers, there's a pretty massive drop-off. I would say the top 5 for this draft has pretty much solidified themselves. I think there is a big gulf between that top 5 and the rest of the class, which is, I think, a reason why potentially taking this year could be important to a lot of teams out there. But I do think the best prospect outside of that main top 5 crop is Jackson Smith, somebody that I've really liked throughout the course of this year. You can see at 6'3", 190 pounds, you might seem as more a defensive guy, but he is pure offense. In 34 games this year for Tri-City, 23 assists, 25 points. He's always looking to jump in the play, create opportunities, and score. He's a pretty simple guy with that, but he's really been effective. But I think the sky is the limit for just how much confidence he provides, how he's able to work the blue line, especially a power play, and just how much he's already able to bring. I do think there is some pretty big question marks with the way he asserts himself defensively. I think there are times where he could be a little bit too lackadaisical for my liking. But man, what Jackson Smith can do at his best is among the best in this draft class, and at least outside the top 5 is the most exciting to me. That's really what it comes down to. Smith is the most exciting out of that top 5, and that's why he's here. Now, to get us started with the top 5 in this 2025 draft, let's go on to one of my favorite prospects to watch in this class, in Victor Eklund, who I think if you're watching Sweden at this year's World Juniors has probably made an impression for you, and absolutely he should be. I mean, he has had a great World Juniors, 6 points in 6 games, but it's not just the production with Eklund that is so important to me, it's the projectability. He's somebody that I think is just so strong already, so good at winning battles all throughout the ice. He's intense, he's hard with the puck, and he goes after it. Among some of the best in this draft, he absolutely wants the puck in every single situation, and he will work for it. And even though I think there's still some muscle he could bulk, I think he's still a really refined player already. And considering his drive for the net, considering how good he can be in all skill situations too, I think Eklund is just such a versatile player, and with his physical attributes is a pretty projectable one too. You could be worried about the size, but considering the way he plays, I think that's what's most important. Now we get inside the top 4, and I mentioned in my World Junior stock video that we would see a lot of rising and sliding in this class to me, and at the top end, that is no different. My top 4 has changed pretty drastically from what it was just a month ago, and a good example of that is at number 4, Porter Martone of the Brampton Steelheads. Now, here's the thing. I still think all 4 of these guys are pretty much at an even level. You are pretty much splitting hairs at this point, but Porter Martone comes in last out of the top end. I still absolutely adore this player though, and I think he is going to be a menace, especially once the NHL turns to the playoffs. That is where Martone is going to be at his best. You can see for Brampton this year in 27 games, 21 goals, 55 points. He's just an absolute monster. He's looking to attack. He's looking to create chaos. He's looking to out-bulk you in every single way, especially in the net front. That was a kind of role that we found him playing and having some success in with Canada this year. I think with Martone, he's a lot more of a skilled guy than maybe we saw at the World Juniors, but I want to see him assert himself more, really show himself more in that category, because I think there's a lot to give. But I just think that consistency out of the 4 guys I've seen so far would probably come last place, and that's why I have him last. Now, coming in at number 3 here, we're going to go on to another one that I think has really risen over the course of this year for me, and that is Matthew Schaefer. Now, he doesn't quite come inside the top 2, but again, Schaefer is practically right there. He, to me, is the best defenseman of this class, and even though we weren't able to see the rest of his World Juniors, sadly, he was able to show why in the 1 game he played. Or the 2 games he played technically. Barely played in the second, but in that first game, got the empty net goal, had that great assist to Grav Members. When it comes to Matthew Schaefer, he is always looking to attack, always looking to jump in the rush, and he is so good at it. He's basically an extra forward out there doing what he does best with his skill level and the skating and just how heads up of a player he is. He is so good with finding lanes and mix and matching and being versatile around the offensive zone. There's just so much to like with Schaefer that I really can't see him not being a top end offensive piece in the next level. He's going to be ridiculous. Injury aside, it doesn't matter. He's going to be good. That leads us on to number 2, just missing out at that first place spot, but somebody that I really do think was another miss by Canada, not having at the World Juniors, and that is Michael Misa. To me, with Misa, he is just so much of what I love in a hockey player. I love high IQ play, I love high pace, and Misa brings both of those things in droves. He is just so intense, so good around the ice, and in terms of his vision, his creativity, he's just always using it, always putting it on display, always looking to create the next big thing. And I think in Misa's case, he's somebody that's going to be just this extraordinarily well-balanced NHLer. There's been a lot of comparisons to a John Tavares, and I can absolutely see that, but I do think Misa is more explosive than Tavares can be, at least in the later stages. I think Misa is a player that can really provide top-end game-breaking moments at the NHL that Tavares didn't quite bring as much, but he's up that alley of two-way balanced play that leads to success in the end. He might not be the flashiest player compared to a player that we'll mention in number one, but in Misa's case, he's always driving consistent results and always getting the best out of everybody he plays with. And yeah, 66 points in 34 games, the results speak for themselves. But now going on to number one, and still to me the best prospect in the 2025 NHL Draft, I got James Higgins out of BC. And this hasn't changed for me. Higgins has been number one all along, though there has been a lot of conversation recently about different players around that spot. But to me, Higgins has always been number one for one clear reason. To me, I think he has the most potential out of anyone in this draft, and that's for a lot of key reasons. In terms of production, he's been great this year at BC, great at the World Juniors. To me, though, the vision, the creativity, the pace, it's all at a sky-high level, and he's able to create off the rush so well, create with his teammates, especially in the offensive zone. He's a very good player in transition, but I think when the play is settled in the offensive zone, that's where he can really get dangerous. He's not afraid as well to get against some physicality. We've seen that at this year's World Juniors, to play against bigger competition and try to steal the puck away. He's just a creator in every sense of the word, and is somebody that I think is going to be a true play driver, a true first-line center at the NHL level. But that is it for today's post-World Juniors top 20 rankings for the 2025 NHL Draft, and I hope you guys enjoyed all the scouting reports and all the prospect talk. If you did, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell if you haven't already. Comment down below your thoughts on my list, what you agree, what you disagree with, and what your top list would be. How would you order, especially the top 5 of this draft? I would love to hear your thoughts down below. Of course, should have all the hockey fans you guys know online, I click on this card for all my 2025 draft content in one playlist. And of course, I'm to bet US today using code YouTube150. I will see you in the next one, and drink some water for me. Goodbye.